Thank you guys for being with me tonight. Hello, I gotta get this in. Carol Soskin, hey sweetie. Hey, hey, hey. Carol here. He's my sister from another mister out there in California. I need to start sending you Hanukkah cards. She always sends me Christmas cards. Bless her heart. I love Carol. And we're coming up in 10, 5. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, sending everybody my love. Yes, it's an odd time to be recording the show tonight, but guess what? Who we are, because we have one of the runaways. This is why I met you in this same position 4 years ago. Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, I'm so glad to have you along with Daryl Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition, brilliant attorney. And we've got to talk about the runaways. That's right. You're running away again. We saw New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who had some of your colleagues this morning. So you're in two states. You're in Illinois. You're in New York. Some of your colleagues are still in Texas. But if you don't show up, you are risking arrest. And now the president is getting the FBI involved, as is one of your senators. It is a lot. And quite frankly, given what has happened to elected officials at the highest level, federal elected officials, I think you are at risk of arrest. This is not something that's beyond the realm of possibility. So let's talk about this, everybody. The Democrats in Texas are seeking to deny a quorum to the Republicans. Why is that important? Well, typically when you have the census, the year after the census, you redraw the congressional lines to reflect the population. That does not happen in the middle of the 10-year census period. It generally happens a year after the census has been taken. So this is rare. Not just rare, it is odd. And we need to talk about this. What does this mean? We're seeing that Democrats will be pitted against each other, canceling each other out. And the most progressive Democrats, 3 of them, have been targeted for elimination. And now Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, said, okay, Governor Abbott, you picked 5, I raise you 5. So he's looking at 5 districts in California. He said, you want to do this? We're going to redraw districts in California. So let's talk about this. What does all of this mean? Let's start with Texas. Let's start with the great state of Texas. I have to tell you, this is something that I think we've got to think about, because President George Washington, who was the first, only, indeed, he is the last, he is the last independent president we have had. We have not had a president who was without allegiance to a party since George Washington. And I want to bring you something from his address to the American people. He said that parties could shift focus away from the common good and toward partisan interests, hindering effective governance. Let me say that one more time. Parties could shift focus away from the common good and toward partisan interests, hindering effective governance. Truer words have not been spoken. They were said more than 200 years ago. Now, when you listen to many Republicans, many of your Republican colleagues, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, they are saying, no, this isn't about the country. This is about the party. And this is about what the party wants and what President Trump wants. Let's talk about this, everybody. What is it that you want? Hey, Carol. Hey, Michael, everybody, please meet me on Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social, santitajackson.bsky.social. I'm on X at SantitaJ. at Santita J, also the Santita Jackson Show. You can meet me there as well. But I want you to meet me on Facebook, Santita Jackson and Friends, Santita Jackson and Friends, and of course, right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Let's talk about what's happening in Texas and in Illinois and in New York, and with arrests that appear to be imminent. We heard this in 2021, Representative Reynolds, that you were being threatened with arrest, but it's a different day. This is something that to me is entirely within the realm of not just possibility, but probability. So you all are really on the run. I think that's why some of your, I'm sure you can help me to understand why some of your colleagues elected to stay behind. They could have had financial concerns. There's so much that's going on. But help me to understand why you ran away, because we had you on the show as you were on the plane on your way to Illinois. What happened? What prompted this? And where are we now?
Well, good evening. Well, good night, rather. It's
Yes.
exciting. It's exciting to be on with you, and it's great to see my dear distinguished Alpha brother Daryl here on with us tonight. And I want to say that first of all, I would be remiss if I didn't thank you for the hospitality you extended today with your amazing father as we embark upon the 60th anniversary of the signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate the signing of the Voting Rights Act than being with the Reverend Jesse Jackson. So I had to say that. But the reason why we're here is that's kind of a prelude to why we're here. We're here because it's time for us to step up. We have the baton now, and it's time for us to step up and make the good trouble necessary to preserve and protect our democracy, because President Trump and Governor Abbott are doing everything they can to racially gerrymander and do a Texas takeover of 5 Republican seats that President Trump said he had to have so he could hold on to a slim majority in the House of Representatives. So he was doing the way they're doing that is on the backs of Black primarily and Hispanic districts across the state of Texas. And so my constituents, for example, are represented by Congressman Al Green of the 9th Congressional District. They have tore his district apart, made it now a Republican district. They moved him out of his district into the 18th Congressional District that is unoccupied because Governor Abbott didn't call a special session, a special election after the death of Congressman Sylvester Turner back in January. This seat has been unoccupied and these people have been without representation. So now the 9th and the 18th Congressional District are paired so that you now have one African American congressional district in Houston and one in Dallas because they have taken Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, my former colleague, your soror, and drew her into Congressman Mark Vesey's 33rd congressional district so that they would now move the 33rd congressional district to a Republican district, and they will have one African American seat in Dallas. And so what the Republicans and these MAGA folks have done is reduce the African American congressional representation by 50% in the state that has the largest African American population in the country in a mid-decade redistricting that is unprecedented because we haven't got the census. The last redistricting that they did after the census in 2021 was when we broke quorum because of ridiculous voter suppression that they were trying to do on top of gerrymandering. And let me be very clear. This is a direct assault on our democracy and our Black and brown communities. They're trying to take us back to days where Black folks didn't have representation. This is pre-Voting Rights Act. This is Jim Crow all over again. President Trump and his MAGA extremists are doing everything they can, and now they're sicking the Department of Justice to come and get us so that they can take us back to Texas and either arrest us or haul us on the House floor so that we can help them make quorum so they can pass these congressional seats that disenfranchise our black and brown districts. And I said, not on our watch. We must fight. We must take a stand, and we must say, not on our watch. And so that is why we're here. We're here to stop them from rolling over our Texans that are in black and brown communities so that they can have a power grab and steal these seats to give Republicans more seats because they're afraid of facing the voters in the midterm. They know their policies are unpopular, and that is why they're trying to steal through hook or crook and redrawing these racially gerrymandered districts that really are unconstitutional. And if we had a Supreme Court that followed the law based on the Voting Rights Act, the little bit that's left in Section 2, they would throw these maps out of and tell them that they're unconstitutional. But we don't have any faith in the courts. And that is why it's left up to us to do whatever we have to do to stop this steal.
Why are you in Illinois? Why are some of your colleagues in New York?
Well, we're in Illinois, where I'm in Chicago right now, because we had to leave the jurisdiction of Texas so that the Department of Public Safety, the state troopers, couldn't come and arrest us in Texas. They don't have jurisdiction outside of the state. Some of my colleagues went to New York to appeal to Governor Holcomb that if it's good for the goose, it should be good for the gander. So, Governor, in New York, if Texas redistricts, you need to redistrict. That's the appeal we made. And she said, you know what? It's a new rule. It's a new game. They're not playing by the rules. So we're going to have to change the rules of engagement. We had sent a delegation previously to California to meet with Governor Newsom. Governor Newsom has responded in kind and said, California is going to redistrict. Okay, Texas, you think you're big and bad? Well, we just a little bit bigger. So we're going to redistrict too. We met with the governor of New Mexico. So that is the reason why we had members fly and delegations fly to appeal to these other blue state governors to respond in kind. We have to stop bringing knives to gunfights. We have to say, we're going to go toe to toe. We're not going to let you bully us. We're playing by the rules, and they're playing and by any means necessary. And we can't allow them to destroy our democracy because we're so beholden to the rules that they're breaking. We're saying, no. We're not going to, if you want to change the rules of engagement, guess what? Two can play that game. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. So the colleagues that flew to New York, they're now here with us in Illinois, and we're all united, standing in solidarity on the right side of history to push back against this authoritarian bully, this felon that occupies the White House. And we're saying not on our watch. So we're standing up. We know that we're facing jail. We know that we could be facing with expulsion. In fact, today, Governor Abbott filed a lawsuit to remove, I'm the vice chair of the House Democratic Caucus. He moved to have the chairman, Gene Wu, removed from office. He filed a petition to the Supreme Court of Texas. This is unprecedented. He thinks he's a king, just like President Trump. But guess what? We were elected by the people. So we're going to fight that. I've been in contact with Chairman Gene Wu, our minority leader, and I'm standing toe to toe because, hey, guess what? He comes for Gene Wu today. Reynolds is next, right? I'm next up. So I'm not afraid. I'm going to keep, fighting and doing what I have to do. But this is unprecedented, Santita. And I'm great. We have brilliant lawyers like Daryl and Barbara Arnwine and other civil rights constitutional lawyers that are there helping us because like today, our Black Caucus had a meeting with former Attorney General Eric Holder. That's how serious it is, Santita. We're having to do that. I'm in constant contact with the Texas State President Gary Blesso, who's one of the more far-right civil rights attorneys in the country. We are lawyering up. That is what we're facing because we don't have a Department of Justice that is there on our side anymore. In fact, the Department of Justice is an enemy of civil rights movement. They're actually fighting against us and not fighting for us. So we Senator Cornyn sent a letter to the FBI director, Cash Patel, and said, "Hey, you need to go get those Texas Democrats in Chicago." So right now, we are any moment now the FBI could come knocking down the door and trying to haul us back to Texas because
Wait a
guess what?
minute. You're on
Recently,
the most wanted list.
yeah, President Trump said yes. I authorized this. No, seriously,
No,
President
no, no.
Trump
I mean,
authorized this.
that is not a comical laugh. That's a rueful laugh. Like, are you
Yeah. Oh
serious?
yeah. Yeah. This would be funny if it was in a movie, but I have my colleagues right now who are literally afraid that the FBI is going to come knocking down their door and taking them back in handcuffs. That's the kind of fear that some of people are having. But you know, Santita, I don't fear no man. I place my faith in God, and to me, fear is false evidence appearing real. That's what fear stands for me. But I understand their concern. But you know, when we know what our forefathers had to go through with freedom rides and lunch counters, knowing that they could be beaten, knowing that they could be lynched, risking their life to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge to end Jim Crow. Look, they endure way worse than this. I'm not worried about. Give me the $500 fine. Take my position if you want to. I'll run for re-election again, just like they did with the Tennessee Three. They got their seats back. You know, my constituents are proud. I've got more support from my constituents over this. And this is my 15th year in public office, and my phone and emails have been blowing up because my constituents are saying, "Keep fighting. We support you." So that's where we are, Santita. We're here standing strong, and we're not going to back down. Not on our watch are we going back. But if we're not careful, they'll take us back to those dark days of Jim Crow. Don't think is it that just like they took away women's reproductive rights, they've eroded voting rights. They've gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965. They've ended diversity, equity, and inclusion. Don't think that they won't keep chipping away, chipping away, chipping away until we're second class citizens again.
Well, you know, these are executive orders. They're not law. I mean, what is the justification for the reconfiguration of these congressional districts? Does one have to be given?
This is what they did. The Department of Justice, they sent a letter to Greg Abbott saying that the 2021 redistricting that we did, that the Republicans did, that it was unconstitutional because there were racial gerrymander of the ninth congressional district with Al Green, the 18th at the time was Sheila Jackson Lee, the 30th at the time it was um, Eddie Bernice Johnson, and the 33rd with Mark Vesey. And the other one that they named was Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, the 29th congressional district in Houston. They said those seats were racially drawn and unconstitutional, and therefore they need to be redrawn. Governor Abbott then acquiesced with a special session, and then they came up with these maps that were probably drawn at Mar-a-Lago, and they sent them in to Texas, and my Republican colleagues just rubber stamped them. This is a sham. This is a steal. We've never seen anything like this, Santita. And I hope we got to stop normalizing all of this stuff that Trump is doing. Barack Obama, they would have held him up for treason for the kind of stuff that President Trump is doing. Like literally putting the Department of Justice on us, the way they treated elected officials with these ICE raids. They have the audacity to go to a detention center that they have a right to do is for federal oversight and arresting them. So I don't have a doubt that they will probably arrest me at some point, Santita, because I'm not going quietly. They're not going to punk me and make me afraid to go, you know, crawling back to Texas. They're going to come in and take me with handcuffs. I'm not going back unwillingly. They're going to have, I mean, they're going to have willingly, they're going to have to come and take me back literally. So that's what it's come down to. And this is America. What happened to a democracy? We're living under an authoritarian dictator that wants to be a king. He looks up to, you know, Putin and Kim Jong-un and other dictators, and we're seeing that's how he's governing. So that he'll stick the National Guard on citizens. He'll deport citizens that because they look like they may be an immigrant. And I'm an American citizen. We see he's trying to end birthright citizenship. So next thing I know, he may be saying, well, hey, we're going to try to get rid of the 13th Amendment. I don't know. I just don't know anymore, Santita, because this is unprecedented. Every day it's a new something else through executive order. So we're living in unprecedented times. And I hope people wake up and understand this is not a drill. This is the fierce urgency of now. All those people that were, oh, Project 2025, that's nothing. That's a joke. What difference does elections make? We're seeing it right now in real time. We're really seeing it. And I can tell you for sure that this kind of dictator, I don't put anything past him that he would jail us because he wants to punish his political enemies. We're enemies of the state right now. That's what we are. We're enemies. We're American citizens. We are elected officials, but in Trump and MAGA's eyes, we're enemies because how dare we push back against their power grab, their racial gerrymander? How dare we stand up and speak truth to power? How dare we call them racist and how dare we call them out? So now they want to target us, and I say, let's make some good trouble. But we hope this is a call to action to wake up people that elections matter. If you think your vote didn't count, then you better watch what's happening right before our very eyes. This would be funny if it was a movie, but this is real life.
Attorney Daryl Jones, he has said a mouthful. I mean, we now have no, 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 no. I mean, I'm not yanking your chain. I mean, the fact is, I mean, while we were together this evening having dinner, you gave me your phone and said, "Look at this." I mean, now the FBI has been told to come after us. I said, "Wow, what is the point here?" And Attorney General Jones, how do you read this as we come on the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act? That having been said, our mutual dear friends, the Mitchells, their grandfather, wrote the Voting Rights Act along with Lyndon Baines Johnson and a few select others. Um, wow, we're having to look at the fundamentals of citizenship, Attorney Daryl Jones. What do you make of these Democrats who are now on the run? And mind you, I met Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds in 2021. They were in Washington, and it was a very challenging time. That having been said, it seems it's more serious. It seems like the stakes are, I'm not going to say more serious, but the stakes are higher. Daryl Jones.
Yeah,
What is
yeah, thanks, Santita. And let me start by just saying, hats off to Representative Reynolds and the other Democrats that are in Texas and have decided to leave the state to break the quorum rather than allow an injustice to occur, not only to the voters in their districts, but to the voters across the state of Texas, to the voters across the United States of America. That's the significance of what they're doing in this moment. Now, I heard Representative Reynolds say that he went to meet with Reverend Jackson to get the baton and to move forward. I don't stand with that type of analogy, Santita. It's not that Representative Reynolds is getting the baton to move forward. No, he went to Reverend Jackson so Reverend Jackson could light his torch, so they both can carry their torches forward as he continues to hold his torch high. So it's not a passing of a baton; it's the lighting of the torch to illuminate the wrongs that are happening in Texas and throughout the country. That's what I really salute them for doing. Let me tell you this. We talked about some in Illinois, some in New York, some in Massachusetts that are on the run out of the state of Texas. Let me start by saying this. When I first met Representative Reynolds in 2021, he was in Washington, D.C., facing the same issue, And at that point in time, had the Senate listened to us and passed the Freedom to Vote Act, passed the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, we would not have this issue that's going on in Texas today. You know, when President Biden didn't push it through, when Sinema and Manchin didn't vote, wouldn't stand up to have these rights passed, to have these laws passed. This is the result of all of that. So this is where we are now as a result of what happened then. So when you ask me, what do I make of all of this? What do I think of all of this? It's a horrible situation, but they are on the front line for protecting democracy. Let me tell you, we heard much spoken about the courts and what the courts can do. Let's also lay this at the door of the Supreme Court of the United States. It was the Supreme Court of the United States that the Roberts Court that in 2019 they came with the Rucho decision, Rucho versus Common Cause, which said that the federal courts, if redistricting was done for partisan purposes, that the federal courts are going to leave it alone. They're not going to get involved with it at all. Saying that they're going to leave them to their state courts to make those political partisan decisions. So it's a horrible situation that's been laid out as a result of that. And I tell you, Santita, I say hats off, but it's also hats on and boots on, because it's now time to really get into the trench and fight. It isn't just a Texas thing. This is a United States thing. That's the reason that you hear California talking about what can we do. That's the reason that you hear Maryland talking about, it's one Republican congressional member. How can we consider redistricting to pick up that seat as well? This is a battle that's going to be a nationwide battle over these issues. And we've got to be certain that we understand one of the ways that we get here is down ballot voting. It's not down ballot voting. This is the reason that voting for members of your House of Delegates, your local, your state House of Delegates, and your state senators is so important, because that's one of the guardrails that's there to protect your rights. This is how we end up where we are now, Santita. So we're deep in this fight. And as Representative Reynolds and the others in the state of Texas know, we're right there with you. Whatever we can do, we're going to be there. We're going to continue to push forward and getting people registered and getting people to the ballots. But what I find really fascinating, Santita, with regard to this situation and what President Trump and Senator Cornyn have done with trying to get the FBI involved to arrest them, is this: there's no federal crime that's been alleged to have been created, done here. No federal crime. Why are you eliciting the FBI? What are you doing? So all of this, are issues that are going to be raised and continue to be raised. And, I'm hoping that they can stay away from the quorum and break the quorum long enough that it'll mess up the special session. The special session, I yield to Representative Reynolds on it, but that the special session at some point has got to run out. There's an ending point to it, and if they can run out the clock and the session ends without this stuff being passed, well, kudos to them. But this is a horrible situation, and we've got to take notice of what's going on, and we've got to take action in every state, because what happens in Texas is about to impact everybody in every state across this nation.
We're talking about the Texas Democrats who have run away from the state of Texas. They're in Massachusetts, they're in New York, they're in Illinois, because they know the danger in this statement. I mean, in the statement that they are, I mean, we've got so much going on, Representative Reynolds. And so some people might think that this is a distraction from Epstein and all the things that we continue to find out about that case every day. We haven't even gotten to the Guadalupe River floods. I mean, and the emergency system that I don't think you have yet.
Nope.
I need you to help me to understand what is. Do you have a court case with the governor, or is what he's doing perfectly legal?
Well, I'm happy I have Attorney Daryl Jones here, one of the great attorneys with the Transformative Justice Coalition. From what we believe, that this is unconstitutional. The governor is not a king. The governor does not have the authority to remove us from office unless we have a felony conviction, which that would vacate our seat in Texas, unless we abandon our office voluntarily, or we die in office. Those are the three scenarios where the governor could remove us from office. And so, yes, the governor is definitely outside of his legal authority to do that. While he may want to do that, while President Trump may want to do that, it will be no difference than President Trump being able to remove a sitting member of Congress because he disagreed with them or they decided to break quorum. And he said, well, okay, I'm going to remove them from office. He couldn't do that. Governor Abbott has the same restrictions. He cannot simply remove us with the stroke of a pen. And the Attorney General, actually, funny enough, you can't make this up, who is, basically a crook himself. He sent the letter to an advisory today, just recently, just tonight, saying, "No, Governor, you don't have the authority. But guess what? I do to bring a suit for abandonment of office." And said the Speaker of the House has given us to Friday uh, to return, and then if we don't, then he would do that himself. So this is ridiculous, man. I mean, I'm not going back on Friday. I will be where I am or somewhere else, but I won't be in Austin at the state capitol so that they can run over us and pass this bill. That's all they want us to do. They're not talking about flooding relief. I guarantee you, if we broke quorum for that, they wouldn't do anything. But this is Trump giving them marching orders, so they better deliver. They want to appear tough. They want to appease him. They want his support for their reelection and for higher office. Our Attorney General is running for a United States Senator against John Cornyn. So he wants that MAGA base of support in his primary, and so we're pawns. We're political pawns, and we're red meat for their base. And the attorney general said he wants to hunt us down. So what does that mean? We're prey, we're animals. He wants to come and will do what? I mean, he wants to hunt us down. We're prey. Those were his words. And so they have said they want to hunt us down. They want to remove us from office. They want to fine us. They want to expel us. They want to do everything they can to get this bill passed, this racial gerrymandering, so that Trump can have his 5 seats to help him steal the midterm election and keep power in the House of Representatives with Speaker Mike Johnson and the Republicans.
But you know what? This is happening before our eyes. I mean, our eyes are wide open. And I ask you about legal recourse. What do you need? And I'm going to ask this of you, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, and I'm going to ask this of you, Darrell Jones, because you're a lawyer, but you're also in media. Of course, every Tuesday morning at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on WOL. He and attorney Barbara Arnwine have a great radio show that, in fact, indeed, they talk to issues just like this issue today. I mean, I'm really trying to see what it would look like for you all to be arrested. But then I just saw the California senator who was arrested. I mean, this is very, and I would say it's even imminent. Fortunately, you're in a state where you have a governor who embraces your cause. What concerns me are police officers who don't. You know, that concerns me too. But you know, and I want to put all of that out there because I think these are things that we really need to think about as we're looking at this. Representative Ron Reynolds, what should we be doing now as voters and quite frankly as citizens?
Well, Santita, one of the things that we have to do is stand with those who stand for you and push back against those who don't support you. No matter if you're Democrat, Republican, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Muslim, Christian, whatever, we have a common oppressor, and that is Donald Trump. He is a existential threat to our democracy in this country. And it's important that we fight back and we stand in solidarity with a multiracial coalition, just like it wasn't just Black people marching through the civil rights movement that awakened to seeing the images of a bloody John Lewis and others trying to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and they say, "Hey, enough is enough." And then you had a multiracial group of people marching in solidarity that wanted to be on the right side of history. That is what I want for this country. I want people to say, "This is not our America. This is not okay." I want people to say that we want to remove dictators from office. We don't have any kings in America, right? We have a system of government and a democracy that should work for everyone. And so that's what I'm appealing for, people of good conscience to say, hey, I may not agree with you on everything. We may disagree philosophically. You're progressive, I'm conservative. But guess what? Right is right and wrong is wrong. And I want to stand with you. And we all have a common interest in standing up for what's right and being on the right side of history. Because guess what? At the end of the day, we all are going to have to meet our maker, right? Judgment day will come. And I would not want to have it on my conscience that I messed over the least of them, that I messed over people because they didn't look like me, right? Or they had a D next to their name instead of an R. And so I hope that people will stand up and say, you know what, enough is enough. Let's stop with this insane nightmare that is terrorizing our country, and let's come back to our senses, and let's have decency and do things in order. And let's have philosophical debates and dialogue, but we don't want to demonize and kill our opponents. I didn't want people who attempted to assassinate President Trump. I called that out because I said that's wrong. Even if you disagree with him, you don't kill him, you vote him out of office, right? You hold him accountable. You don't try to take his life. I think now people have become so callous and evil that if someone disagrees, then we think that they're our enemy, you know? And so it's a call to action that people need to be engaged and people need to vote. Certainly the midterms are around the corner. What happens with this gerrymandering will impact the midterms, but it's incumbent upon all of us to work together to live out the kind of America that we want to see, you know, and have the philosophy that if it is to be, it's up to me. That if not me, then who? If not now, then when? If not this, then what? You know, and Gandhi said it best that we must be the change that we want to see in the world. That's what I hope that people will do. Is that and see our act of taking a stand and say, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it too. Because we're risking not just our livelihoods, I mean our freedom, but we're away from our families, we're away from our jobs. We should have been done with session, but now we're in a special session, so we can't really earn a real living because a lot of people don't even know. And I'm almost embarrassed to say, but we make $600 a month as state representatives. So yeah, Daryl, you didn't know that, huh? $600 a month. So some people think we make what Congress makes. No, we don't.
But even no, honestly, even what Congress makes,
Yeah,
is nothing when you have to live in Washington D.C. or in the DMV, somewhere
true.
near Washington. It is so expensive, and you got to maintain your home in the district. I mean, this is insane. But this is insane. I mean that. First of all, I don't know how it is in 2025. You getting $600. That's $600 per what?
per month.
Per month.
I mean, I just wanted to make sure that I heard what I heard because that is so
Yeah,
crazy to
that
me.
part. Yeah.
I thought what you were making in 2021 was insane. This is really crazy, and yet it's so important. I mean, what you're doing is so important. And I guess I'm just trying to find out how you can be protected. And you know, I'm going to ask Daryl when he gets back. Just, I mean, what are you doing? Because, you know, I teased you about this, but hey, we heard all of these sirens when we were having dinner. And I saw your eyes get big for just a hot second. And I said, oh my gosh, no, 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 because all bets are off today in the United States. That's why I told you. I said, well, I think it'll be better for you to come to Chicago because at least there is a civil rights infrastructure here.
Mm-hmm.
But that having been said, I think it's Texas today and it's the rest of us tomorrow or in the morning, because only heaven knows what else they will pull.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand the justification, the rationalization. And when gets back, I want to speak to him about that. But I need you to help me. I mean, Daryl, the justification, the rationalization, and the protection that they need.
Right.
Because I mean, if they're arrested, what do they do?
Yeah, well, absolutely, Santita. I mean, let me just start with the justification. There is no justification for what's happening in Texas. If the closest we have to an example of what's going on in Texas is what happened in Florida when Governor DeSantis removed an elected state's attorney from office because she wouldn't prosecute the abortion ban cases that the governor there had put in place. That's the closest we have to an example. And the scary part with Representative Reynolds and the other representatives that are there is that this is a matter that will end up in the state court in Texas in all likelihood, not the federal court. And so when you start get to the state court of Texas, you start wondering what the state judges that are going to be there and listen to it, what's going to be their makeup? What is going to be their background? What will be their intention? It's very rare that we have a situation where we have a president of the United States telling a state governor what to do, and the state governor and the legislature responding to it and moving in lockstep with it. It's a horrible situation. The other thing that this has the impact on, we talk about it, within the state of Texas as well as nationally, you begin asking the question, well, why should I vote? Why should I vote? They're going to do what they want to do. My vote's not going to matter. That's the other fear and the other concern that arises in this situation. That's part of the reason why, I say that Texas right now is a national issue. It is a national emergency because this is what, if you believe in a democracy, if you believe that, that votes matter, then what's happening in Texas has got to be at the forefront of your thought process. I appreciate the argument that we really just want fair voting. We like everything to be square across the board. Let the person that gets the most votes win. Let the most people that win, govern accordingly, and not have these folks, these governors and presidents that are coming in trying to remove people because they don't like what they stand for, or that they don't like how they're fighting for their constituents, which is what Representative Reynolds and the others are doing in Texas. They're fighting for their constituents. So, Santita, I say all that to say, what should we be doing? Wherever you are in this country, you can call 512-463-2000 and tell Governor Abbott you're wrong. Stop trying to redistrict and mess this stuff up. Call that 512-463-2000 number and tell them that you're wrong. That's important, Santita. That's one of the biggest things that we can do, I think, right now. And when the case comes to trial in Texas, as it appears as though it will, got to be certain that we fill that courthouse with people that are supporting democracy, people that are supporting the representatives that are now refugees because of the actions that this governor has taken. That's the most important thing to do right now, Santita. And I only underscore and highlight and put exclamation points behind what Representative Reynolds has said. You got to be certain that you're registering and that you're voting when the time comes so you can correct the ship if you don't like the direction that it's going.
And don't you think this should be a national issue? That is, when we're at the town hall meetings in Nebraska, in Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
they should be pressing their colleagues about what's happening in Texas.
Absolutely. We're actually going to be hosting a national teletown hall on the anniversary of the Voting Rights Act today, August the 6th at 7
Mhm.
p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to be talking precisely about this. What's the status of the Voting Rights Act and as it applies to the state of Texas and what's going on there. I mean, this is a national issue. I cannot say it enough. I can't press it enough. I just wish that people would have listened to Representative Reynolds, to Barbara Arnwine, myself, and all of those that were pushing for the Freedom to Vote Act back in 2001, so we would not be where we are right now. But we are where we are. We've got to pick up the fight from where we are and push back. That's why all of this is so incredibly important. And as Antita, as you say, that's why it's a national issue, because it's not just Texas. What happens in Texas is about to happen across this country. So be ready to pick up, your torch and be ready to stand up for voting rights across the country.
Representative Reynolds, as you're looking at, as we're watching all of this unfold, because heaven knows overnight you don't know what can happen. Like you said, um, any knock on the door that you don't expect, you don't know what this is going to mean. And when people are, well, look, we don't know what will happen in custody. My question for you is, um, what what would be the end result of this redistricting?
Mm.
Because I think that we need to put faces and names on these persons, because maybe Jasmine Crockett means something to you. I mean, beyond, yeah, I mean, just uh, maybe Al Green, who stands up and stands alone. I mean, looking like Don Quixote. I mean, he is just standing fiercely, and your Latina uh, colleague. These are the people who are doing that. My question is, just how else can we be supportive? Because I think we need to understand Johnny and Michael and Linnell and Cornell. Hey, how you doing, Andre and Carol? Just, I don't know if we really understand that this means me too.
Mhm.
I mean, this is, we're not isolated. These people are pulling things that, quite frankly, we've never seen before. And need I remind you of what George Washington said? I'll wrap up the show with his remarks, because 200 years ago, the first president who refused the opportunity to become a king also shunned partisan politics. He said we have to come together on something called the common good, not what's good for the Republicans or the Democrats. I told you, I don't want a Democratic or Republican president ever again. I want a president of the United States who's going to serve my interests, not the interests of party donors. We're not well served by this, Representative Reynolds. So just moving forward, I mean, because we were with my mother earlier, and Daryl Jones, my father, he has all kinds of challenges with his speech at this point,
Mhm.
but his mind is still very sharp. And when he takes a notion, he speaks very clearly, very loudly, and you can hear him. Should I say, just you can absolutely understand what he's saying. And he saw Beto O'Rourke, who he has known since Beto was about 12. Beto O'Rourke's father was a tremendous supporter of Reverend's and his campaigns. Indeed, he was the chair of the Texas campaign in 1988. Um, Beto has been saying we got to fight fire with fire. And my mother said my father sat up and frightened her to death because he was so clear and so sharp. He was watching that news report, that package, and he said, "You don't fight fire with fire; you fight it with water."
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right, Daryl. Put the fire out.
Mhm.
You can't keep up the fight if you're fighting fire with fire, because you don't want to get burned.
Mhm.
Somebody's got to come in with a bucket of water. And somebody's got to be the grown person in the room and say this is not right, Representative Reynolds. This is this is absolute. I mean, we saw Scott Walker try to do this in Wisconsin in 2011. We're seeing this all over the place, and all not just the norms, because that which is normal is not right either. But moving toward a more perfect union, this takes us back, Representative Reynolds. I mean, it really, really does. And so, what do you see going forward?
Well, I think there's a lot of uncertainty. You know, speaking of faith, I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. And so I rest my faith in God. And I also know that faith without works is dead. And I
Yeah.
got my feet planted solidly on the ground. And I'm going to use whatever tools that I have to speak out, to push back, and to fight. And so I hope and I pray that we will be victorious.
Mm.
And to me, victory looks like it may be not a short term gain, it may be long term. But as Dr. King said, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. So we have to be willing to fight the good fight. This is a marathon, not a sprint.
Mhm.
We're only in the 7th month of President Trump's term. So there's a lot of time left on his watch with his 4 years remaining. And then
Wait,
we
put
all
a pin
know
in that
what's
because
that?
his people put a pin in that because his people are actively planning for him to have another term.
Oh, I know. Oh, totally, totally, totally. And then there could be a constitutional crisis when he has the National Guard that says, "Hey, I'm your commander in chief, and I'm not going anywhere," because he declares martial law, and now there is no election. That's not a stretch of the imagination based
No.
on everything we're seeing, right? So this is a shock on our president, right? We're seeing before our very eyes with carte blanche immunity from the U.S. Supreme Court for official acts. If he does that as an official act, then he's immune from prosecution. He has his handpicked attorney general who does his bidding, his handpicked FBI director who will hold him accountable. That's why we have to have some checks and balances in the midterm. We have to have a speaker of the House. I'm not saying it has to be Hakeem Jeffries, but there has to be some checks and balances. And I'm praying that there's a Democrat that in the speaker's seat, he or she, so that they can have some checks and balances, assuming that there's a Republican majority in the Senate, which there likely will be. And so there can at least be someone that can have subpoena power, because we've seen just with Speaker Johnson, they won't even hold any kind of accountability for even Jeffrey Epstein because the president may be somehow involved. So I don't have any confidence in Speaker Johnson, Attorney General Pam Bundy. I don't
Mhm.
have any confidence in the FBI Director Kash Patel, the
Don't leave up
CIA
Supreme Court.
Director, nothing. The Supreme Court. I have no confidence in this government. And that concerns me as an elected official and as a citizen of this country. So it's important for all of us not to grow weary in well doing, not to give up. I've heard people say, I'm just going to leave the country. This is your country. You shouldn't have to flee this country. You should stand and fight, vote, and make that good trouble so that we can turn this ship around. And so that's what I'm hoping that people are going to do. They're going to dig in. They're going to say, not on our watch. We're going to stand up. We're going to push back, and we're going to defeat this authoritarian dictator that wants to take us back to those dark days. MAGA is certainly not in the best interest of African Americans, in my opinion. And Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Shame on us that we didn't believe him the first term. Now he's in there for a second.
Daryl Jones, what do you want people to know? As we begin to wrap this up, because we're going to be talking about this tomorrow as well.
Mhm.
Because to me, this is you have to sound the alarm yourself. You can't wait for corporate media to say, "Hey, this is important."
Right.
This is extremely important all by itself, and we know it. We've seen this before. No, we have seen this unfairness. Black people have been here since before 26, before 1619. We came over here with the Spaniards, if not before, because if you look at different pieces of art, you see black people.
Hmm.
So come on, everybody. My thing is, I mean, Daryl, what do we help me to understand what it is that we're supposed to do? Um, I mean, just I guess I just feel that we need to protect these men and women
Hmm. Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
I just don't think I think that I I think that the the powers that be are more than willing to be very aggressive with them, and that is not something that it frightens me, but I think it's something for which we need to be prepared.
No, you're absolutely right, Santita. It's something we've got to be prepared for. Let's be clear about one thing. Just explicitly clear about this one thing. The one thing that we cannot do right now is be silent. Because if you are silent, you become complicit with what's happening. You're going to let them continue to roll over everybody and everything and do what they want to do. You can't do that. This is not the time to be on the sidewalk and watching what's happening in the street. This is the time where you need to be out front. You need to be involved. If you can't be in Texas, make that phone call that we just talked about to the Texas governor. Let them know where you stand. We're just coming off of the National Day of Action in the name of John Lewis, right on July 17th, where we had over 2 million people in the streets talking about they don't like what's happening. Well, this is a continuation of that. You've got to let folks know that you are not going to sit quietly while rights are being taken away. You can't do that. This is the most important time, if any, for you to raise your voice, to raise your concern, and to show that you are in disagreement with what's happening in Texas. You're in disagreement with any president telling any state what to do, and the governor being taking the knee and being compliant. This is the time for you to stand up. If you wondered what you would have done in the 60s when your rights were being challenged, well, guess what? You're there right now. Your rights are being challenged. The question is, what will you do? What will you preserve for the next generation? By the way, they're watching you right now. That's the question that's being asked right now, Santita. So we've got to be certain that we make our calls. We call Governor Abbott at that 512-463-2000 number. If you have the email address for him, send them the email. Do whatever you can, but by all measures, do something so that you're not silent in this moment, because your silence will have our democracy removed and will not fare well for the generation that's watching us and how we're responding to the challenge that's in front of us right now, Santita. Representative Reynolds said, Santita, that one of the things that people can do is pray and pray and pray and pray about. And I'm a big man of prayer. I am a faith-filled person, as is he, with regards to the power of prayer. But I also believe what Fannie Lou Hamer said. You can pray until you faint, but unless you get up and do something, God ain't going to put it into your lap. So we've got to be certain that people are ready to get up and do something about what they're praying to have happen. We've got to take that action on ourselves, Santita. That's the message that I want to take and send to people toward the end of the show. Take that action, get out there, have your voice heard.
Every Tuesday at WOL, you'll hear more talk like that with attorney Barbara Online and attorney Daryl Jones. What would you like to say before we go, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds?
Hey, as we celebrate and commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, let us never forget those who came before us that made good trouble, that made the ultimate sacrifice so that we will have the freedoms that we have today. So let's do our part. As Daryl Jones said, we have the baton now. It is on our watch. We must stand and fight, and we cannot allow them to take us back. Not on our watch.
Not on our watch. And I will leave you today with these words from George Washington, the first president of the United States, who belonged to no party. He shunned them. He said parties could shift focus away from the common good and toward partisan interests, hindering effective governance. He worried that parties could become susceptible to manipulation by foreign powers. compromising. They're compromising our national interests. Are we not dealing with that right now? Everybody, he believed that intense focus on party loyalty could eventually lead to a concentration of power in the hands of an individual, effectively ending the republic.
Hmm.
This is where we are right now. He felt that parties could restrain monarchy, but he concluded that their potential for harm in a popular government outweighed any benefits. And here we are. You have people playing partisan politics with our republic.
Mhm.
This is not about Democrats. This is not about Republicans. This is about the democracy that we hope to really incorporate more into the republic. It's about the republic. We're all in this together, everybody. My father often said we came over here in different boats, but we're in the same different ships, but we're in the same boat now. You ought to be concerned about what's happening with Texas. Do they have the votes? No. But do they have the light now? Yes. And they're letting us know. They're sounding the alarm. So now Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, she's looking at options. Governor Gavin Newsom is looking at options. And because they're on their way to Ohio, they're on their way to Massachusetts. This is not going to stop in Texas, everybody. And we are well on our way to not being fairly we are already not fairly represented in our government. I'm not making it a case for any party. I am making a case for the republic. I am making a case for democracy. We have got to do right by our country because it is ours. I don't care how we got here. The fact is we are here. And what's happening now is very, very dangerous. The good news is this. You have the power to turn this around. And maybe we need this moment so that we can really begin to understand our power. Because if we were not being called upon in this moment, we'd probably just sit it out. So everybody, you call your representatives and you let them know, not as a Republican or Democrat, but as a citizen, that this is not right. This is not January 6th where you are, or post November 2020, where you are just looking for a few votes in Florida. Or you're looking for a few seats in Texas and in Ohio. No. That's not the way this is supposed to work, everybody. And if you allow this to happen, the destruction of our republic is assured. But the good news is we've got some brave members of the state legislature in Texas who are in good trouble. Good trouble. So everybody, if you see the police coming their way or the FBI coming their way, you need to protect them because they're protecting us. Remember that. And I'm not saying do anything untoward toward these law enforcement personnel. Don't do that. You don't fight fire with fire, you fight it with water. But we cannot afford to have them arrested and dragged back into the legislature. That would hurt all of us. So I hope it doesn't come to that, but I certainly am proud to know my dear brother beloved, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, Texas State Representative Wu, and all of your colleagues. Thank you for standing up for America. This is what patriotism looks like. This is what it looks like. Indeed, this is what it is. I am Santita Jackson, sending you all so much love. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Sending you so much love, everybody. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show.